You see, the thing is that, we are a fossil fuel economy. When I say fossil fuel means oil, gas, and coal. And except for coal, where we are kind of quite, self-dependent or self-reliant, call it by any name. But for oil and gas, we are heavily dependent on imports. And at the same time, we are an emerging economy. We are not a developed economy like the US or Canada or Europe. Therefore, we have a limited capacity in terms of building storage or putting those kind of to build the kind of storage that some countries have in the western part of the world, or Japan has for that matter, or China has now managed to build, because China is a much bigger economy. They have been growing much faster. And therefore, we have, if you really go by the oil that we have got in strategic petroleum reserve, the SPRs, I think we have oil for roughly about 25 to 28 days. And then we also have some oil in our oil farms. When you travel around, you see these big tanks along the road or along the railway line. Those are called oil farms, oil tanker farms. We have quite a few of them. So we have roughly have oil for another maybe 25 days. So overall, about 50 days of oil that we have. And don't forget one thing, we are the third largest consumer of oil in the world. Every day we consume 5.7 to 5.8 million barrels of oil every day, third largest. And we are also the second largest importer of oil, since we don't have much oil in our country. We have no option but to import. We are not as blessed as Saudi Arabia or Russia. So therefore, and we import roughly 5.2 million to 5.3 million barrels of oil every day for 42 different countries. So in such a situation, it's very easy. Some people can argue, oh, why didn't you build the reserve for 100 days or 200 days and so on and so forth. But there is economics involved in it. It's not that easy. I mean, China has done that and Japan has done that, development because the economy, the size of the economy is very different. However, I think with this, what has happened, what we have seen since the beginning of the Iran war, I think the government now probably is going to move more in that direction, whether we can afford it or not. There's going to be more strategic decision, and I think we are moving already in the direction of building SPRs, the strategic petroleum reserves, for minimum 90 days, but maybe even more, maybe about 120 days for oil, but also for maybe LPG and also for gas. So this has been a great learning for most countries in the world, not only India. And I think India probably has already started prioritizing and has started thinking in the direction of expanding our SPR, strategic petroleum reserves, to maybe 90 days, maybe 120 days, and also build storage for LPG and for natural gas. So, but that's for the future. But right now, the situation is that we have no option. We are dependent on imports. It's important the war ends soon. It's important that the prices don't go beyond a certain limit. It's important that the supplies are not disrupted. But we are the third largest consumer of oil, so that basically gives us some advantage, because all the major oil exporting countries, they want to be on the good side of India. They want to have good relations with India, because for India, energy security is securing oil or securing the supply. For major oil exporter like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, and Russia, they want, for them, energy security is basically securing demand. And India today is driving the demand for oil globally. We are the leader. And since in India, we have seen the incremental growth of demand roughly in the region of 3 to 4% per annum. So therefore, all the major exporters, they also want to have good relations with India for future, because the war will end sooner or later. So they want to maintain, because India is a major buyer. So we can always leverage that in the presence, in the current situation, and say, all right, if you want to have good relations with us long term, it's important. We are now in crisis. You got to help us with the rapid supply, a smooth supply, and at a good price of crude. So I think that's being already done to leverage it. So as I said, that oil is 90% politics or geopolitics, depending on the situation or in the context. But I think so far we have shielded. We have done reasonably well if you compare India with like Indonesia or with Bangladesh or Pakistan. However, since dependence so high, and it looks like war is not going to end sometime soon. It looks like even if the war ends, the effect and the impact is going to last for much longer. Therefore, I think India has started basically preparing in that direction. The first move in that direction is the Prime Minister himself directly having conversation with the nation, explaining what we all got to know. At the same time, having kind of brainstorming, but at the same time preparing Indian people, Indian consumer, Indian industrial consumer, and big stakeholders in Indian economy that look, the horizon is not very bright. There are many challenges, geopolitical challenges. Prices of petroleum products, fertilizer are going up. Therefore, let's have conversation. Let's brainstorm, and let's see. We might need to take some, tough measures in time to come. And I think the preparations for that, or in that direction, the conversation in that direction, or steps in that direction, probably have already started happening.